Question 1. Operational review demonstrates that a client requires integration of external customer data into IBM Tivoli Process Automation Engine V7. 5. For workflow automation. The external data resides in a separate legacy database, which integration approach best aligns with TPv7. 5. Architectural principles and regulatory considerations for data handling. Option A. Develop custom scripts that directly query the external legacy database and push data into TP tables. Option B. Utilize the IBM Tivoli Process Automation Engine Service Integration Bus SIB with appropriate adapters to connect to and retrieve data from the external database. Option C. Implement direct database-level connections from TP application components to the external legacy database. Option D. Manually export data from the legacy database and import it into TP on a scheduled basis. The correct answer is B. Utilize the IBM Tivoli Process Automation Engine Service Integration Bus SIB with appropriate adapters to connect to and retrieve data from the external database. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an implementation consultant to balance the technical capabilities of IBM Tivoli Process Automation Engine, TP, V7, 5 with the specific business process requirements of a client, while adhering to the implicit regulatory and compliance expectations inherent in any enterprise software deployment. The challenge lies in identifying the most effective and compliant method for integrating external data sources, ensuring data integrity, security, and auditability without compromising the core functionality or introducing vulnerabilities. Careful judgment is required to select an integration strategy that is both technically sound and aligns with best practices for data management and system security. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it leverages the built-in integration capabilities of TPv7. 5. Specifically the Service Integration Bus, SIB, and associated adapters. This method is preferred as it is designed to handle data exchange securely and reliably within the TP ecosystem. Using SIB ensures that data transformations and routing are managed within a controlled environment, facilitating easier troubleshooting, auditing, and adherence to data governance policies. This aligns with the principle of using vendor-provided, supported mechanisms for integration, which minimizes custom development risks and ensures compatibility with future TP updates. It also supports the principle of least privilege by allowing controlled access to external data sources. An incorrect approach involving direct database access from TP components would be professionally unacceptable due to significant regulatory and ethical failures. This method bypasses the intended integration framework, creating a direct dependency on the external database's schema and availability, which can lead to system instability and data corruption. From a regulatory perspective, it introduces substantial security risks by exposing the TP environment to direct database vulnerabilities and potentially violating data privacy regulations if sensitive data is not adequately protected during transit or access. It also undermines auditability, as direct access is harder to track and control than mediated integration through SIB. Another incorrect approach, relying solely on custom scripting without proper error handling and logging, fails to meet professional standards. While scripting can offer flexibility, its ad hoc nature without robust error management and comprehensive logging makes it difficult to ensure data accuracy and system reliability. This lack of audit trail and error reporting directly contravenes regulatory requirements for data integrity and traceability. It also poses an ethical risk, as it can lead to undetected data discrepancies or system failures that impact business operations and client trust. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a thorough understanding of the TPv7.5 architecture and its integration patterns. This includes evaluating the client's specific data requirements, security policies, and compliance obligations. The consultant should prioritize solutions that utilize the platform's native capabilities, such as SIB, for secure and auditable data exchange. If custom solutions are unavoidable, they must be developed with rigorous error handling, comprehensive logging, and adherence to security best practices, ensuring they are well documented and maintainable. A risk assessment should be conducted for each integration method, considering potential impacts on data integrity, security, performance, and compliance. Question 2. The assessment process reveals that a critical business process managed by IBM Tivoli Process Automation Engine V7.5 is experiencing intermittent delays and occasional failures. Users are reporting that tasks are not completing within expected timeframes, and some requests are timing out. The IT operations team needs to quickly diagnose and resolve the issue to minimize business impact. Which of the following approaches is the most effective for diagnosing the root cause of the performance degradation within the TP environment? Option A. Immediately initiate a full hardware diagnostic sweep of all servers hosting the TP components, assuming a hardware bottleneck. Option B. Review TP application logs, performance monitoring data, and recent configuration changes for anomalies related to the affected business process. Option C. Rely solely on end-user feedback to identify which specific user actions are causing the delays without correlating with system-level metrics. Option D. Randomly adjust various TP configuration parameters, such as thread pool sizes and database connection timeouts, to see if performance improves. The correct answer is A. Immediately initiate a full hardware diagnostic sweep of all servers hosting the TP components, assuming a hardware bottleneck. Explanation: scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in IT service management where a critical business process is experiencing performance degradation. The challenge lies in accurately identifying the root cause within a complex system like IBM Tivoli Process Automation Engine TP V7.5, which integrates various components and services. The pressure to restore service quickly, coupled with the potential impact on business operations, requires a systematic and evidence-based approach to troubleshooting. Misdiagnosis can lead to wasted resources, prolonged downtime, and increased business risk. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a methodical investigation that begins with understanding the reported symptoms and then systematically examining the TP environment. This includes reviewing system logs, performance metrics, and recent configuration changes. Specifically, analyzing the TP application logs for error messages, warnings, or unusual patterns related to the affected process is crucial. Correlating these findings with TP internal monitoring data and potentially external system resource utilization, CPU, memory, Disk I/O provides a comprehensive view. This approach aligns with best practices in IT service management, emphasizing data-driven problem-solving and adherence to established troubleshooting methodologies. It ensures that interventions are targeted and effective, minimizing disruption and adhering to service-level agreements, SLAs. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to immediately assume a hardware failure without sufficient evidence. This bypasses the critical step of analyzing application-specific logs and configurations within TP, which are often the direct indicators of process-related issues. Such an assumption can lead to unnecessary hardware diagnostics, replacement, and significant downtime if the problem is software or configuration-related. Another incorrect approach is to randomly adjust TP configuration settings without a clear hypothesis or understanding of their impact. This is a trial-and-error method that can exacerbate the problem, introduce new issues, and violate change management procedures, potentially leading to non-compliance with operational guidelines. Finally, focusing solely on end-user reports without validating them with system-level data is insufficient. While user reports are valuable, they need to be corroborated by objective system performance data to pinpoint the actual source of the problem within the TP infrastructure. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured troubleshooting methodology. This typically involves 1. Problem identification, clearly define the symptoms and impact. 2. Information gathering, collect all relevant data, logs, metrics, user reports, recent changes. 3. Hypothesis generation, formulate potential causes based on the gathered information. 4. Testing and verification, systematically test hypotheses, starting with the most probable. 5. Solution implementation, apply the identified fix. 6. Verification and monitoring, confirm the resolution and monitor for recurrence. This systematic process ensures that decisions are informed, efficient, and minimize risk. Question 3. Benchmark analysis indicates that a critical factor in the successful and compliant implementation of IBM Tivoli Process Automation Engine V7.5 is a robust approach to identifying and managing potential project risks. Which of the following approaches best aligns with industry best practices for risk assessment in complex IT implementations? Option A. prioritizing only risks with a high probability of occurrence, disregarding those with low probability regardless of their potential impact. Option B, conducting a single, comprehensive risk assessment at the project's inception and relying on its findings throughout the implementation lifecycle. Option C, delegating the entire risk assessment process to junior technical staff with minimal oversight to expedite the project timeline. Option D, implementing a phased risk assessment strategy where risks are identified, analyzed, and mitigated iteratively at key project milestones with ongoing review. The correct answer is B, conducting a single, comprehensive risk assessment at the project's inception and relying on its findings throughout the implementation lifecycle. Explanation: scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in IT implementation projects, balancing the need for robust risk assessment with the practical constraints of project timelines and resource availability. The challenge lies in ensuring that the risk assessment process is thorough enough to identify potential threats to the successful implementation of IBM Tivoli Process Automation Engine (TP)v7. 5. While also being efficient and not unduly delaying the project. A superficial risk assessment could lead to unforeseen issues, impacting system stability, data integrity, and business continuity, all of which have significant implications for compliance and operational efficiency. Conversely, an overly complex or time-consuming process can derail the project itself. Careful judgment is required to select an approach that is both effective and pragmatic. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a phased risk assessment integrated into the project lifecycle. This means identifying risks at key stages of the TPV7-5 implementation, such as planning, design, development, testing, and deployment. For each identified risk, the approach should involve assessing its likelihood and potential impact, and then defining appropriate mitigation strategies. This iterative process ensures that risks are managed proactively throughout the project. This aligns with best professional practices for IT project management and risk management frameworks, which emphasize continuous risk identification and mitigation. While specific regulatory frameworks for TPV7-5 implementation are not explicitly detailed in the exam syllabus, general principles of IT governance and risk management, often implicitly or explicitly referenced in professional certifications, advocate for such a structured and integrated approach to ensure system reliability and security. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to conduct a single, comprehensive risk assessment only at the very beginning of the project. This fails to account for risks that may emerge or change as the project progresses through different phases. For example, new technical challenges might arise during development, or unforeseen integration issues could surface during testing. Relying on an initial assessment alone would leave the project vulnerable to these later stage risks, potentially leading to breaches of data integrity or service disruptions, which could have regulatory implications if not properly managed. Another incorrect approach is to delegate risk assessment solely to junior team members without adequate oversight or expertise. This can lead to a superficial understanding of potential risks, missed critical threats, or the development of inadequate mitigation plans. Professional responsibility and due diligence require that risk assessment be conducted by individuals with sufficient knowledge of the TPV7-5 platform, its potential vulnerabilities, and the business context. Failure to do so could result in non-compliance with internal policies or industry best practices for system implementation and security. A third incorrect approach is to ignore risks that are perceived as low probability, even if their potential impact is high. While resource allocation is important, a robust risk assessment must consider the severity of potential consequences. For instance, a low-probability event like a major data corruption incident could have catastrophic business and regulatory consequences. Dismissing such risks without proper evaluation and contingency planning is a failure of professional judgment and risk management. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach risk assessment for TPV7-5 implementation by adopting a proactive and iterative methodology. This involves 1. Establishing clear risk management objectives aligned with project goals and potential business impacts. 2. Integrating risk identification and assessment activities into each phase of the project lifecycle. 3. Ensuring that risk assessments are conducted by qualified personnel with appropriate expertise. 4. Prioritizing risks based on both likelihood and impact, and developing actionable mitigation and contingency plans. 5. Regularly reviewing and updating the risk assessment throughout the project to account for changes and new information. This systematic approach ensures that potential issues are identified and addressed before they can significantly impact the project's success, system integrity, and compliance. Question 4. The risk matrix shows a moderate likelihood and high impact for a specific security vulnerability identified during the IBM Tivoli Process Automation Engine V7. 5. Implementation. The project team has the option to proceed with the implementation immediately, addressing the vulnerability in a subsequent patch, or to halt the implementation until a comprehensive remediation plan is developed and tested. What is the most professionally responsible course of action? Option A. Formally document the identified risk, its potential impact, and the rationale for proceeding with the implementation while a remediation plan is developed and approved by senior management for risk acceptance. Option B. Proceed with the implementation immediately, assuming the vulnerability is minor and will not be exploited before a patch can be applied, without formal documentation or stakeholder acknowledgement. Option C. Downplay the severity of the vulnerability in the risk documentation to facilitate immediate implementation, with the intention of addressing it later without explicit formal acceptance of the risk. Option D. Halt the implementation indefinitely until a perfect, fully tested remediation plan is in place, even if it significantly delays the project timeline and impacts business operations. The correct answer is A. Formally document the identified risk, its potential impact, and the rationale for proceeding with the implementation while a remediation plan is developed and approved by senior management for risk acceptance. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate need for system functionality with the long-term implications of security vulnerabilities. The IBM Tivoli Process Automation Engine, TP, V7. 5 implementation is a critical system, and any deviation from established risk management protocols can have significant consequences, including potential data breaches, operational disruptions, and non-compliance with regulatory requirements. The core of the challenge lies in making a judgment call that prioritizes either expediency or robust risk mitigation, with each choice carrying distinct professional and ethical weight. The correct approach, which involves documenting the identified risks and proceeding with a formal risk acceptance process, represents best professional practice. This aligns with the principles of responsible IT governance and risk management, which are often implicitly or explicitly mandated by regulatory frameworks governing data security and system integrity. By formally documenting the risks and seeking explicit acceptance from appropriate stakeholders, the implementation team demonstrates due diligence. This process ensures transparency, accountability, and a clear understanding of the potential consequences of proceeding. It also provides a traceable record that can be referenced during audits or in the event of a security incident, thereby mitigating liability and upholding professional standards. An incorrect approach that bypasses formal risk acceptance and proceeds with the implementation without explicit stakeholder acknowledgement of the risks is professionally unacceptable. This failure constitutes a breach of due diligence and can be seen as a violation of ethical obligations to protect organizational assets and data. Such an action creates a significant compliance risk, as it likely contravenes internal policies and potentially external regulations that mandate risk assessment and mitigation for critical systems. It also fosters a culture of expediency over security, which can lead to recurring vulnerabilities and a weakened security posture. Another incorrect approach, which involves delaying the implementation indefinitely due to the identified risks without proposing alternative solutions or mitigation strategies, is also professionally problematic. While caution is warranted, an indefinite delay without a clear path forward can hinder business operations and innovation. Professionally, the expectation is to identify risks and then actively work towards solutions, whether through mitigation, transfer, or informed acceptance. Simply halting progress without a constructive plan demonstrates a lack of problem-solving initiative and can be seen as an abdication of responsibility to deliver on project objectives within acceptable risk parameters. Finally, an incorrect approach that involves downplaying the severity of the identified risks to expedite the implementation, without a thorough reevaluation or justification, is a severe ethical and professional failure. This misrepresentation of risk can lead to inadequate security controls being put in place, leaving the organization exposed to significant threats. It undermines the integrity of the risk assessment process and can have catastrophic consequences if a security incident occurs. This action directly violates the professional duty to provide accurate and honest assessments of potential threats and vulnerabilities. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach to risk management. This includes 1. Thorough identification and assessment of risks, leveraging tools like the risk matrix. 2. Evaluation of the potential impact and likelihood of each risk. 3. Development of appropriate mitigation or treatment strategies. 4. Formal documentation of risks and proposed treatments. 5. Communication of risks and proposed treatments to relevant stakeholders. 6. Obtaining formal risk acceptance from authorized personnel for residual risks. 7. Continuous monitoring and review of risks throughout the system lifecycle. This systematic process ensures that decisions are informed, defensible, and aligned with organizational objectives and regulatory requirements. Question 5. The performance metrics show a significant and sustained degradation in the response times of key processes managed by IBM Tivoli Process Automation Engine V7. 5. Impacting user productivity and downstream system integrations. Which of the following represents the most appropriate initial approach to address this situation? Option A. Schedule a detailed investigation for the next planned maintenance window, assuming the current performance impact is manageable for now. Option B. Focus on restarting all TP-related services and application servers to see if the performance issue resolves itself. Option C. Initiate a comprehensive risk assessment to identify potential root causes, evaluate their impact and likelihood, and develop targeted mitigation strategies, prioritizing actions based on risk severity. Option D. Immediately roll back the TP environment to the last known stable configuration without further investigation to restore performance quickly. The correct answer is C. Initiate a comprehensive risk assessment to identify potential root causes, evaluate their impact and likelihood, and develop targeted mitigation strategies, prioritizing actions based on risk severity. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in IT service management where performance degradation in a critical system, IBM Tivoli Process Automation Engine, TP V7, 5, directly impacts business operations. The challenge lies in accurately identifying the root cause of the performance issues and implementing effective remediation without causing further disruption or violating established operational procedures and potential regulatory compliance requirements related to system availability and data integrity. The pressure to restore service quickly must be balanced against the need for a thorough and documented risk assessment process. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic risk assessment that prioritizes identifying potential causes, evaluating their impact and likelihood, and then developing mitigation strategies. This aligns with best practices in IT service management, ITSM, frameworks such as ITIL, which emphasize structured problem management and change control. A formal risk assessment ensures that decisions are data-driven, documented, and consider the potential consequences of both action and inaction. This process helps to prevent hasty, ill-considered fixes that could introduce new risks or violate operational policies designed to maintain system stability and compliance. For example, if TP is used to manage regulated processes, a risk assessment would consider the impact of downtime or incorrect processing on compliance. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach is to immediately implement a broad system rollback without a clear understanding of the specific cause. This is a high-risk strategy that could revert critical updates or configurations, potentially leading to data loss or further instability, and failing to address the actual root cause. It bypasses the necessary risk evaluation and could violate change management policies, requiring documented justification for significant system alterations. Another incorrect approach is to focus solely on immediate symptom relief, such as restarting services, without investigating the underlying issue. While this might offer temporary improvement, it fails to address the root cause, leaving the system vulnerable to recurring problems. This approach neglects the due diligence required in a risk assessment to understand and mitigate the fundamental vulnerability, potentially leading to repeated incidents and impacting service-level agreements, SLAs, and any associated regulatory obligations for system uptime. A third incorrect approach is to defer the problem to a future maintenance window without assessing the immediate business impact. This ignores the urgency indicated by performance metrics and the potential for escalating damage or significant business disruption. A proper risk assessment would quantify the current and potential future impact of the performance issue, justifying the need for immediate attention or a carefully planned, expedited resolution. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach such situations by first gathering all available data, including performance metrics, recent changes, and error logs. This data forms the basis for a preliminary risk assessment. The next step is to hypothesize potential root causes and assess the risk associated with each, considering the likelihood of occurrence and the potential impact on business operations, data integrity, and compliance. Based on this assessment, a prioritized plan of action is developed, which may include further investigation, targeted troubleshooting, or controlled remediation steps. All actions taken, including the risk assessment itself, must be thoroughly documented to ensure accountability, facilitate future analysis, and demonstrate adherence to operational and regulatory standards. Question 6. System analysis indicates that the implementation of IBM Tivoli Process Automation Engine v7.5 is progressing, and a critical review of the risk management approach is required to ensure project success. Which of the following risk assessment strategies is most aligned with best professional practices for managing potential issues throughout the project lifecycle? Option A. Delegating the entire risk assessment process to the most junior members of the implementation team to foster their development. Option B. Conducting a single, comprehensive risk assessment during the initial project planning phase and relying on that assessment for the duration of the implementation. Option C. Focusing exclusively on identifying and assessing technical risks, as these are the most direct threats to system functionality. Option D. Implementing a phased risk assessment process that is revisited and updated at key project milestones, incorporating feedback from ongoing activities. The correct answer is B. Conducting a single, comprehensive risk assessment during the initial project planning phase and relying on that assessment for the duration of the implementation. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in IT implementation projects, balancing the need for robust risk assessment with the practical constraints of project timelines and resource availability. The challenge lies in ensuring that the risk assessment process is thorough enough to identify potential threats to the successful implementation of IBM Tivoli Process Automation Engine (TP) v7.5, while also being efficient and not unduly delaying the project. Overly simplistic or superficial risk assessments can lead to unforeseen issues, cost overruns, and failure to meet business objectives. Conversely, an overly complex or time-consuming process can render the project unfeasible. The professional must exercise judgment to select an approach that is both effective and pragmatic within the project's context. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a structured, phased risk assessment that aligns with the project lifecycle. This means identifying risks at a high level during the planning phase, then refining and detailing them as the project progresses through design, build, and deployment. This iterative approach ensures that risks are continuously monitored and managed. It is best professional practice because it allows for the allocation of resources and attention to risks as they become more relevant and actionable. This aligns with general IT governance principles that advocate for proactive risk management integrated into project management methodologies. While specific regulations for C2010-571 are not provided, the underlying principle of due diligence in risk management is universally accepted in professional IT environments. This approach demonstrates a commitment to identifying and mitigating potential issues before they impact the TPv7.5 implementation, thereby safeguarding the project's success and the organization's investment. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to conduct a single, comprehensive risk assessment only at the very beginning of the project. This is professionally unacceptable because it fails to account for evolving risks. As the TPv7.5 implementation progresses, new technical challenges, integration complexities, or changes in business requirements may emerge that were not foreseeable at the outset. A static, early assessment would miss these, leading to a false sense of security and potentially significant unmanaged risks later in the project. This violates the principle of continuous risk management. Another incorrect approach is to delegate the entire risk assessment process to junior team members without adequate oversight or senior review. This is professionally unsound because it risks a lack of depth and experience in identifying critical risks. Junior team members may not possess the broad understanding of TPV7, 5 capabilities, potential integration points, or the business impact of failures. This can lead to the omission of significant risks or an underestimation of their impact, failing to meet the professional standard of care expected in IT project management. A third incorrect approach is to focus solely on technical risks and ignore operational or business risks. For example, failing to assess the risk of inadequate user training or resistance to change for the TPV7-5 system. This is professionally deficient because the success of an IT implementation is not solely dependent on its technical robustness, but also on its adoption and effective use by the business. Ignoring these aspects can lead to the system not delivering its intended value, even if technically sound. This demonstrates a failure to consider the holistic impact of the implementation. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach risk assessment for TPV7-5 implementation by adopting a risk management framework that is integrated with the project management lifecycle. This involves 1. Initial risk identification. Conduct a high-level risk identification during project initiation and planning involving key stakeholders. 2. Risk analysis and prioritization. Analyze identified risks for their likelihood and impact, prioritizing them for further attention. 3. Risk response planning. Develop strategies to mitigate, transfer, accept, or avoid prioritized risks. 4. Continuous monitoring and review. Regularly review and update the risk register throughout the project lifecycle, incorporating new risks and reassessing existing ones. 5. Communication. Ensure clear and consistent communication of risks and mitigation plans to all relevant stakeholders. This systematic and iterative process ensures that risk management is a dynamic and integral part of the TPV7-5 implementation, rather than a one-off activity. Question 7. The performance metrics show a consistent increase in response times for critical TP workflows and a rise in error rates during peak operational hours. Which of the following is the most appropriate initial step to address these observations? Option A. Immediately schedule a full system upgrade for TP to address potential underlying architectural limitations. Option B. Implement a series of reactive patches and configuration changes to address the observed error rates without a formal analysis. Option C. Initiate a comprehensive risk assessment to identify potential causes and impacts of the performance degradation and prioritize mitigation strategies. Option D. Document the performance metrics and monitor them passively, assuming they are temporary fluctuations. The correct answer is C. Initiate a comprehensive risk assessment to identify potential causes and impacts of the performance degradation and prioritize mitigation strategies. Explanation. Scenario analysis. The scenario presents a common challenge in IT service management, identifying and mitigating risks associated with a critical system like IBM Tivoli Process Automation Engine (TP). The performance metrics, while indicating potential issues, are not definitive proof of a specific risk event. The challenge lies in interpreting these metrics, understanding their potential impact on business operations, and determining the appropriate level of risk assessment and response without causing undue alarm or disruption. This requires a nuanced understanding of TP functionality and its role within the organization's IT landscape. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic risk assessment process that begins with identifying potential risks based on the observed performance anomalies. This includes analyzing the root cause of the performance degradation, evaluating the likelihood and impact of these potential risks on TP ability to deliver its services, and then prioritizing them for mitigation. This aligns with best practices in IT risk management, which emphasize a proactive and structured approach to identifying, analyzing, and responding to risks. Specifically, it adheres to the principles of risk assessment as outlined in standard IT governance frameworks, ensuring that resources are allocated effectively to address the most significant threats to service availability and integrity. This methodical process allows for informed decision-making regarding remediation efforts, ensuring that any actions taken are proportionate to the identified risks. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach would be to immediately escalate the issue to senior management for a full system overhaul without a thorough risk assessment. This bypasses the critical step of understanding the actual risk level and potential impact, leading to potentially unnecessary expenditure and disruption. It fails to demonstrate due diligence in analyzing the situation and could be seen as an overreaction, undermining confidence in the IT team's ability to manage issues effectively. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the performance metrics altogether, assuming they are transient or insignificant. This represents a failure to proactively identify and manage potential risks. If the performance degradation is indeed indicative of an underlying issue, ignoring it could lead to a critical system failure, significant business disruption, and reputational damage. This approach violates the ethical responsibility to maintain system integrity and availability. A third incorrect approach would be to implement a series of ad hoc fixes without a structured risk assessment. While some fixes might temporarily alleviate the symptoms, they do not address the root cause or provide a comprehensive understanding of the risks. This can lead to recurring problems, increased technical debt, and a false sense of security. It demonstrates a lack of strategic thinking and adherence to established risk management methodologies. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such a scenario should follow a structured risk management framework. This involves 1. Observation and data gathering. Collect and analyze all available performance data. 2. Risk identification. Brainstorm potential risks that could be contributing to or resulting from the observed performance. 3. Risk analysis. Evaluate the likelihood and impact of each identified risk. 4. Risk evaluation. Prioritize risks based on their severity. 5. Risk treatment. Develop and implement appropriate mitigation or response strategies. 6. Monitoring and review. Continuously monitor the system and the effectiveness of implemented controls. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are data-driven, proportionate, and aligned with organizational objectives and regulatory expectations for IT service management and risk governance. Question 8. Stakeholder feedback indicates a strong desire for an immediate, custom workflow addition to the IBM Tivoli Process Automation Engine V7. 5. To address a newly identified critical business process. While the request is urgent, the proposed customization appears to deviate significantly from standard TP configuration patterns and may introduce unforeseen dependencies. What is the most professionally responsible course of action? Option A. Immediately implement the custom workflow as requested to meet the urgent stakeholder demand, assuming the development team can address any subsequent issues as they arise. Option B. Inform stakeholders that the customization is too complex and risky to implement within the current project scope, and suggest they revisit the requirement at a later, unspecified time. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive impact analysis of the proposed customization, including its effect on existing workflows, system performance, and future upgrade paths. Develop a phased implementation plan with rigorous testing and user acceptance before full deployment. Option D. Proceed with the customization without formal impact analysis or testing, relying on the development team's expertise to ensure it functions correctly within the TP environment. The correct answer is C. Conduct a comprehensive impact analysis of the proposed customization, including its effect on existing workflows, system performance, and future upgrade paths. Develop a phased implementation plan with rigorous testing and user acceptance before full deployment. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between delivering a solution that meets immediate stakeholder demands and adhering to the established implementation, best practices, and potential long-term system integrity, which are implicitly governed by the principles of responsible IT implementation and data management, even if not explicitly codified in a single document for this specific exam. The pressure to deliver quickly can lead to shortcuts that compromise the robustness and maintainability of the IBM Tivoli Process Automation Engine, TP, V7, 5 implementation. The correct approach, which involves a thorough impact assessment and a phased rollout with appropriate testing, represents best professional practice because it prioritizes system stability, data integrity, and user adoption. This aligns with the general ethical principles of IT professionals to act with due care and diligence, ensuring that implemented solutions are reliable and do not introduce unforeseen risks. By following a structured approach, the implementation team demonstrates accountability and a commitment to quality, which are foundational to professional conduct in IT projects. An incorrect approach that bypasses standard change control procedures and directly implements the requested customization without proper validation would be professionally unacceptable. This failure would violate the implicit ethical obligation to safeguard the system's integrity and avoid introducing defects that could disrupt operations or compromise data. Such an action could lead to significant operational issues, data corruption, and a loss of stakeholder trust, all of which are detrimental to professional standing and project success. Another incorrect approach, such as delaying the implementation indefinitely due to the perceived complexity of the request without clear communication or a proposed alternative, would also be professionally deficient. This demonstrates a lack of proactive problem-solving and poor stakeholder management. While avoiding immediate risk, it fails to address the stakeholders' needs and can lead to frustration and a perception of incompetence. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Actively listening to and understanding stakeholder needs. 2. Assessing the technical feasibility and impact of the request within the TPV7.5 framework, considering best practices for customization and integration. 3. Clearly communicating the potential risks, benefits, and timelines associated with different implementation options. 4. Proposing a structured plan that balances stakeholder urgency with system stability and adherence to implementation guidelines. And 5. Obtaining informed consent and buy-in from all relevant parties before proceeding with any significant changes. Question 9. The efficiency study reveals that a key vendor, whose proposal for the TPV7.5 implementation appears to be the most cost-effective, is also a close personal friend of the project manager. The project manager is responsible for overseeing the vendor selection process. What is the most ethically sound course of action for the project manager? Option A. Secretly advocate for the friend's proposal, highlighting its strengths while downplaying any potential weaknesses to ensure their company secures the contract. Option B. Reject the friend's proposal outright without a thorough evaluation to avoid any appearance of impropriety, even if it means potentially missing out on the best solution. Option C. Proceed with the evaluation as planned, assuming their professional integrity will ensure an objective decision, and only disclose the relationship if questioned. Option D. Immediately disclose the personal relationship to the procurement department and relevant stakeholders, and recuse themselves from any direct involvement in evaluating or selecting that specific vendor's proposal, ensuring an independent review. The correct answer is D. Immediately disclose the personal relationship to the procurement department and relevant stakeholders, and recuse themselves from any direct involvement in evaluating or selecting that specific vendor's proposal, ensuring an independent review. Explanation. The efficiency study reveals a potential conflict of interest that requires careful ethical consideration within the context of implementing IBM Tivoli Process Automation Engine, TPV7.5. The challenge lies in balancing the drive for operational efficiency with the imperative to maintain integrity and avoid even the appearance of impropriety. The project manager is faced with a situation where a vendor, who is also a personal acquaintance, has provided a proposal that appears significantly more cost-effective than others, but the relationship raises questions about objective evaluation. The correct approach involves a transparent and documented process that prioritizes the organization's best interests and adheres to ethical procurement standards. This means disclosing the personal relationship to relevant stakeholders, recusing oneself from the direct evaluation and decision-making process concerning that vendor's proposal, and ensuring that the evaluation is conducted by an impartial team. This upholds principles of fairness, accountability, and avoids any perception of favoritism, which is crucial for maintaining trust within the organization and with its partners. An incorrect approach would be to proceed with the evaluation without disclosing the relationship. This constitutes a failure to uphold ethical standards by creating a situation where objectivity is compromised. It could lead to a decision that is not based on the merits of the proposals but on personal bias, potentially resulting in suboptimal resource allocation or even financial loss for the organization. Furthermore, it violates principles of good governance and could have reputational damage if discovered. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the vendor's proposal outright due to the relationship without a fair evaluation. This also demonstrates bias, albeit in the opposite direction, and could lead to the organization missing out on a genuinely beneficial solution. thereby failing to act in the organization's best interest. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve 1. Identifying the potential ethical conflict. 2. Consulting relevant organizational policies on conflicts of interest and procurement. 3. Disclosing the relationship to superiors or an ethics committee. 4. Recusing oneself from the decision-making process where the conflict exists. 5. Ensuring an objective and fair evaluation process is maintained by others. 6. Documenting all steps taken to ensure transparency and accountability. Question 10. Assessment of the ethical implications of a project manager for an IBM Tivoli process automation engine V7. 5. Implementation who is facing a critical client deadline and is considering bypassing the final integration testing phase to ensure timely delivery. Option A. Implement a documented workaround for a minor issue identified during system testing and deploy the solution, assuming the workaround will suffice and the client will not notice. Option B. Deploy the TP solution without the full integration testing, relying on the unit and system testing already completed, and address any issues that arise post-deployment as they occur. Option C. Proceed with the integration testing as planned, even if it means a slight delay, and communicate the revised timeline to the client with a clear explanation of the necessity for thorough testing to ensure system stability and security. Option D. Inform the client that the project is on schedule for the original deadline, while internally planning to address any integration issues that emerge after the go-live. Correct answer is C. Proceed with the integration testing as planned, even if it means a slight delay, and communicate the revised timeline to the client with a clear explanation of the necessity for thorough testing to ensure system stability and security. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between delivering a project on time and ensuring the integrity of the implemented solution. The pressure to meet a deadline, especially in a client-facing project involving a critical system like IBM Tivoli Process Automation Engine, TP, can tempt individuals to bypass established quality assurance processes. The core ethical dilemma lies in balancing client expectations and contractual obligations with the professional responsibility to deliver a robust and secure system. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes the long-term stability and security of the TP implementation over short-term expediency. Adhering to the documented testing and validation procedures, even when facing time constraints, upholds professional integrity and minimizes the risk of introducing defects that could lead to system failures, data breaches, or operational disruptions for the client. This aligns with general IT professional ethics that emphasize competence, due care, and the avoidance of harm, while the specific regulatory framework for C2010-571 IBM Tivoli Process Automation Engine V7 5 implementation is not explicitly stated as a particular jurisdiction's law. The principles of professional conduct and responsible system deployment are universally applicable in IT projects. An incorrect approach that involves skipping the integration testing phase to meet the deadline is professionally unacceptable. This action represents a failure to exercise due care and diligence. The regulatory or ethical failure here is the potential for introducing significant risks to the client's operations. Integration testing is crucial for identifying how different components of the TP solution interact, and skipping it could lead to unforeseen issues that compromise system functionality and data integrity. Another incorrect approach, which is to deploy the solution with a known, undocumented workaround for a minor issue, also constitutes a failure in professional responsibility. While the issue may seem minor, undocumented workarounds can become significant problems later, especially during upgrades or when troubleshooting. This approach violates principles of transparency and accountability. The ethical failure is the lack of full disclosure to the client about the system's state and the potential for future complications. A third incorrect approach, which is to inform the client that the project is on track without mentioning the testing delays, is a direct breach of professional ethics related to honesty and integrity. This misrepresentation can lead to the client making business decisions based on false information, creating a significant trust deficit and potential contractual disputes. The ethical failure is deception, which undermines the professional relationship and the reputation of the IT professional and their organization. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of project scope, timelines, and most importantly, the established quality assurance processes. When faced with potential delays, the first step should be to communicate transparently with stakeholders about the challenges and their potential impact on the timeline. This communication should be followed by a collaborative effort to explore solutions, which might include reprioritizing tasks, seeking additional resources, or, as a last resort, negotiating a revised timeline with the client. The decision to deviate from established testing protocols should never be made unilaterally and should always be weighed against the potential risks and consequences. Question 11. Comparative studies suggest that organizations often struggle to effectively optimize business processes within complex IT service management platforms. When considering the implementation of process improvements within IBM Tivoli Process Automation Engine V7, 5. Which of the following strategies best balances efficiency gains with system stability and adherence to best practices? Option A. Conducting a thorough analysis of existing processes, designing optimized workflows leveraging TPV7. 5 capabilities, rigorously testing these changes in a sandbox environment, and then implementing them through a controlled change management process. Option B. Implementing a generic process optimization solution from another platform without validating its compatibility or suitability for the specific TPV7. 5 environment. Option C. Directly modifying live process definitions based on immediate perceived inefficiencies to achieve rapid improvements. Option D. Relying on informal feedback from end users to identify and implement process adjustments without formal documentation or testing. The correct answer is C. Directly modifying live process definitions based on immediate perceived inefficiencies to achieve rapid improvements. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in IT service management, where process optimization is a key objective, but the implementation of changes must adhere to established frameworks and best practices. The professional challenge lies in balancing the desire for efficiency gains with the need for structured, documented, and controlled process modifications. Without a clear understanding of the IBM Tivoli Process Automation Engine, TP, V7, 5 capabilities and the underlying ITIL principles, which are implicitly relevant to process optimization in such environments, a hasty or unverified approach can lead to unintended consequences, system instability, or non-compliance with organizational policies. The correct approach involves a systematic and iterative methodology for process optimization within TPV7. 5. This typically entails thorough analysis of existing processes, identification of bottlenecks and inefficiencies, design of improved workflows leveraging TP features, rigorous testing in a non-production environment, and a controlled deployment with appropriate change management. This aligns with best practices for process improvement, ensuring that changes are well understood, validated, and minimally disruptive. It also implicitly supports regulatory compliance by promoting auditable and repeatable processes. An incorrect approach would be to directly modify live processes without prior analysis or testing. This poses significant regulatory and ethical risks. From a regulatory perspective, such actions can violate change control policies, leading to audit failures and potential noncompliance with internal governance standards. Ethically, it demonstrates a disregard for the stability of the production environment and the potential impact on end users and business operations. Another incorrect approach would be to implement changes based solely on anecdotal evidence or without consulting the TPV7, 5 documentation and relevant process frameworks. This can lead to suboptimal solutions that do not fully exploit the platform's capabilities or may introduce new inefficiencies, failing to meet the objective of genuine process optimization and potentially violating the principle of due diligence in system management. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes a phased approach to process optimization. This involves 1. Understanding the current state and desired future state. 2. Identifying specific TPV7, 5 features and functionalities that can support the optimization. 3. Developing a detailed plan for analysis, design, testing, and deployment. 4. Executing the plan with strict adherence to change management protocols. 5. Continuously monitoring and evaluating the effectiveness of the implemented changes. This structured reasoning ensures that process improvements are robust, sustainable, and aligned with organizational and technical requirements. Question 12. The audit findings indicate that while IBM Tivoli Process Automation Engine (TP v7) 5 workflows are documented, there is a noticeable divergence between the documented steps and the actual execution by operational teams, leading to potential inefficiencies. Which of the following strategies best addresses this audit finding and promotes effective process optimization within the TP environment? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive review of TP workflow execution logs and solicit direct feedback from end users to identify specific deviations and bottlenecks. Then use this data to refine and redeploy optimized workflows. Option B. Update the existing TP workflow documentation to reflect current operational practices, assuming that the observed deviations are minor and do not significantly impact overall efficiency. Option C. Initiate a series of training sessions for operational teams on the importance of adhering to documented TP workflows without investigating the reasons for current deviations. Option D. Categorize the audit finding as a low-priority issue, focusing on other system enhancements until a more significant operational impact is clearly demonstrated. The correct answer is A. Conduct a comprehensive review of TP workflow execution logs and solicit direct feedback from end users to identify specific deviations and bottlenecks. Then use this data to refine and redeploy optimized workflows. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because the audit findings highlight a potential disconnect between the documented processes within IBM Tivoli Process Automation Engine (TP) v7 5 and the actual operational execution. The core of the challenge lies in ensuring that process optimization efforts are not merely theoretical exercises, but are effectively implemented and yield tangible improvements in efficiency and compliance. The auditor's observation suggests a risk of shelfware processes that exist on paper but are not actively followed or optimized, potentially leading to inefficiencies, increased error rates, and non-compliance with internal policies or external regulations. Though specific external regulations are not detailed for this exam, the principle of adherence to documented standards remains. The correct approach, focusing on a systematic review and refinement of TP workflows based on operational data and stakeholder feedback, represents best professional practice. This aligns with the fundamental principles of process management and continuous improvement, which are implicitly expected in the implementation and maintenance of enterprise software like TP. By analyzing actual performance metrics, e.g., cycle times, error rates, resource utilization, and gathering input from those who use the system daily, the team can identify bottlenecks and areas for improvement that are grounded in reality. This data-driven and user-centric methodology ensures that optimization efforts are targeted, effective, and likely to be adopted by the operational teams, thereby achieving the intended benefits of process improvement. This approach also implicitly supports adherence to any internal governance frameworks that mandate efficient and effective use of IT systems. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on updating documentation without verifying operational adherence would be professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a lack of due diligence and a superficial response to the audit. It risks perpetuating the very issues the audit identified: a gap between documented processes and actual practice. Ethically, this approach fails to uphold the responsibility to ensure the system is functioning as intended and efficiently. Another incorrect approach, which involves implementing changes based on anecdotal evidence or personal opinions without data validation, is also professionally unsound. This can lead to misdirected efforts, wasted resources, and potentially introduce new problems. It lacks the rigor required for effective process optimization and can undermine the credibility of the IT team. A third incorrect approach, which dismisses the audit findings as minor or irrelevant without proper investigation, represents a significant failure in professional responsibility and risk management. It ignores potential systemic issues that could have broader operational or compliance implications. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Acknowledge and validate audit findings. 2. Prioritize findings based on potential impact and risk. 3. Gather relevant data, operational metrics, user feedback, system logs to understand the root cause of any identified discrepancies. 4. Develop targeted solutions that address the root causes, considering both technical and procedural aspects within TP. 5. Implement changes with a clear plan for monitoring and measuring their effectiveness. 6. Communicate progress and outcomes to stakeholders, including the audit team. 7. Foster a culture of continuous improvement where process optimization is an ongoing activity. Question 13. To address the challenge of ensuring the IBM Tivoli Process Automation Engine V7, 5 implementation effectively meets the diverse operational needs and strategic objectives of various business units, which approach best balances stakeholder expectations with technical feasibility and project success criteria. Option A. Delegate the responsibility of defining TPV7. 5 requirements to the IT project team, assuming they can accurately interpret the business needs based on initial project briefings. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive series of workshops with each stakeholder group to document their current processes and desired future state. Map these requirements to specific TPV7, 5 functionalities, and establish a prioritized backlog for iterative development and validation. Option C. Focus on implementing the core TPV7, 5 functionalities that are technically straightforward, and then address more complex stakeholder requests as change requests during the post-implementation phase. Option D. Defer detailed requirements gathering until the TPV7, 5 system is largely built, allowing stakeholders to provide feedback on a near-complete solution to identify any necessary adjustments. The correct answer is B. Conduct a comprehensive series of workshops with each stakeholder group to document their current processes and desired future state. Map these requirements to specific TPV7, 5 functionalities, and establish a prioritized backlog for iterative development and validation. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in IT implementation projects, managing diverse stakeholder expectations and ensuring alignment with business objectives. The IBM Tivoli Process Automation Engine, TP, V7, 5 implementation is a significant undertaking that impacts multiple departments, each with its own priorities and understanding of success. The challenge lies in translating broad business goals into specific, actionable requirements for the TP system, and then ensuring that the implementation effectively addresses these diverse needs without compromising core functionality or compliance. Misalignment can lead to scope creep, budget overruns, user dissatisfaction, and ultimately, failure to achieve the intended business benefits. Careful judgment is required to balance competing demands, prioritize features, and maintain a clear focus on the overarching project goals. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a structured and iterative process of stakeholder engagement, requirements gathering, and validation, directly tied to the TPV7, 5 implementation's intended business outcomes. This approach prioritizes understanding the why behind each stakeholder's request, mapping it to specific TP functionalities, and ensuring that the proposed solution aligns with the overall business strategy and regulatory compliance. By establishing clear communication channels, conducting thorough impact analyses, and obtaining formal sign-offs, this method ensures that all parties are in agreement on the scope, functionality, and expected benefits of the TP system. This proactive management of expectations and requirements is crucial for successful project delivery and adherence to any relevant IBM guidelines or industry best practices for process automation implementation. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves prioritizing the immediate technical feasibility of a request over its business value or alignment with strategic goals. This can lead to the implementation of features that are technically possible, but do not contribute to the project's core objectives, wasting resources and potentially complicating the system. This approach fails to consider the broader impact on business processes and stakeholder satisfaction, potentially leading to a system that is difficult to use or does not deliver the expected return on investment. Another incorrect approach is to defer all detailed requirements gathering until the later stages of the implementation. This can result in significant rework delays and increased costs as fundamental design decisions are made without a complete understanding of stakeholder needs. It also increases the risk of overlooking critical functionalities or compliance requirements, which can have serious repercussions. A third incorrect approach is to rely solely on the IT team's interpretation of business needs without continuous validation from stakeholders. This can lead to a disconnect between what is built and what is actually required, resulting in a system that does not meet user expectations or address the underlying business problems effectively. This lack of collaborative validation is a direct failure in ensuring the TP solution truly serves the business. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a phased approach to stakeholder engagement and requirements management. This begins with identifying all key stakeholders and understanding their high-level objectives. Subsequently, detailed requirements should be gathered through workshops, interviews, and process mapping, ensuring that each requirement is clearly documented, prioritized, and linked to a specific business outcome. Regular validation sessions with stakeholders are essential to confirm understanding and obtain buy-in. For TPv7, 5 implementations, this means understanding how specific automation capabilities will streamline workflows, improve efficiency, or ensure compliance, and then translating these into concrete system configurations and workflows. The decision-making process should always weigh the proposed solution against the project's defined success criteria, budget, timeline, and any applicable IBM best practices or internal governance policies. Question 14. Benchmark analysis indicates that a key business unit leader, whose department is a primary beneficiary of the IBM Tivoli Process Automation Engine v7, 5 implementation, has requested a significant customization to a core workflow module. This request was not part of the original approved scope and was made late in the development cycle, with the leader emphasizing the immediate competitive advantage it would provide their unit. The project manager is aware that implementing this change without a formal review could expedite the stakeholders' perceived benefit, but also carries the risk of destabilizing the integrated TPv7, 5 environment and impacting other dependent processes. Option A. Immediately implement the customization as requested by the business unit leader to ensure stakeholder satisfaction and capitalize on the perceived competitive advantage. Option B. Schedule a brief informal meeting with the business unit leader to gauge the urgency, and then proceed with the customization based on a quick assessment of its feasibility. Option C. Inform the business unit leader that the request cannot be accommodated due to the late stage of the project and the absence of it in the original scope, without further discussion or analysis. Option D. Initiate the formal change control process. Conduct a comprehensive impact analysis on the TPv7, 5 implementation, and present the findings to the project steering committee for a decision. Correct answer is D. Initiate the formal change control process, conduct a comprehensive impact analysis on the TPv7, 5 implementation, and present the findings to the project steering committee for a decision. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in IT implementation projects, balancing the immediate needs of a key stakeholder with the broader, long-term strategic goals and the established governance framework of the organization. The challenge lies in discerning when to accommodate a powerful stakeholder's request and when to adhere to the approved project plan and established processes, especially when the request deviates significantly. The IBM Tivoli Process Automation Engine (TP) v7, 5 implementation requires a structured approach to ensure successful deployment, integration, and adoption. Deviating from this structure without proper due diligence can lead to technical debt, security vulnerabilities, and ultimately project failure. The correct approach prioritizes adherence to the established TPv7, 5 implementation methodology and governance. This involves a formal change control process where any deviation, especially one impacting core functionality or integration points, is thoroughly assessed for its impact on the project timeline, budget, scope, and overall system integrity. This aligns with best practices in IT project management, emphasizing risk mitigation and controlled change. By engaging the project steering committee and conducting a formal impact analysis, the team demonstrates professional diligence, ensuring that decisions are data-driven and aligned with organizational objectives, rather than being driven by the influence of a single stakeholder. This also upholds the integrity of the project plan and the established TPv7, 5 implementation framework. An incorrect approach that bypasses the formal change control process and directly implements the stakeholder's request without proper evaluation is professionally unacceptable. This demonstrates a disregard for established project governance and can lead to significant risks. Specifically, it bypasses the necessary impact assessment, potentially introducing unforeseen technical issues, security loopholes, or integration conflicts within the TPv7, 5 environment. This can also set a dangerous precedent, encouraging future ad hoc requests and undermining the authority of the project management team and the established implementation framework. Furthermore, it fails to adequately document the change, hindering future troubleshooting and maintenance efforts. Another incorrect approach that involves a quick, informal discussion with the stakeholder and a subsequent gut-feeling decision to proceed without any formal documentation or impact analysis is also professionally unsound. This approach relies on subjective judgment rather than objective assessment, increasing the likelihood of errors and overlooking critical dependencies within the TPv7. 5. Implementation. It lacks the rigor required for a complex system deployment and fails to provide any auditable trail for the decision-making process. A third incorrect approach that involves delaying the decision indefinitely without engaging the appropriate governance bodies or providing a clear rationale to the stakeholder is also unprofessional. While it avoids immediate deviation, it creates uncertainty and can damage stakeholder relationships. It fails to proactively manage the situation and address the stakeholders' concerns within the project's established framework. The professional decision-making process for similar situations involves a structured approach. 1. Understand the stakeholder's request and the underlying business need. 2. Assess the request against the current project scope, timeline, budget, and technical architecture of the TPv7. 5. Implementation. 3. Initiate the formal change control process, documenting the request and its potential impact. 4. Conduct a thorough impact analysis involving relevant technical and business stakeholders. 5. Present the findings and recommendations to the project steering committee or relevant governance body for a decision. 6. Communicate the decision clearly to the stakeholder, providing a rationale. 7. If approved, integrate the change into the project plan with appropriate adjustments. If rejected, explore alternative solutions or document the rationale for rejection. Question 15. Cost-benefit analysis shows that a specific module within IBM Tivoli Process Automation Engine v7. 5. Implementation is contributing to higher licensing fees. A stakeholder is proposing to disable this module entirely to achieve immediate cost savings, arguing that its functionality is not currently perceived as critical for their immediate operational needs. What is the most professionally responsible approach to address this stakeholder's proposal? Option A. Propose a workaround that bypasses the module's functionality using custom scripting, even if it deviates from standard TP configuration, to achieve the cost reduction without technically disabling the module. Option B. Immediately disable the module as requested by the stakeholder to realize the projected cost savings, with a plan to reevaluate its necessity in a future, separate project. Option C. Inform the stakeholder that their request cannot be fulfilled due to the module's inherent importance to the TP platform, and suggest they explore alternative cost reduction strategies unrelated to the software's functionality. Option D. Conduct a thorough impact assessment of disabling the module, evaluating its dependencies on other TP functionalities, its role in data integrity and audit trails, and potential compliance implications within the relevant jurisdiction before making any decision. The correct answer is D. Conduct a thorough impact assessment of disabling the module, evaluating its dependencies on other TP functionalities, its role in data integrity and audit trails, and potential compliance implications within the relevant jurisdiction before making any decision. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in IT implementation projects, balancing the perceived immediate benefits of a solution with the long-term implications and regulatory compliance. The core of the professional challenge lies in the stakeholders' focus on a narrow, short-term cost reduction, potentially overlooking the broader impact on operational efficiency, data integrity, and adherence to IBM Tivoli Process Automation Engine (TP) v7. 5. Implementation best practices and any applicable regulatory frameworks that govern data handling and process automation within the organization's jurisdiction. Careful judgment is required to guide the stakeholder towards a decision that is not only cost-effective in the short term, but also sustainable, compliant, and aligned with the strategic goals of process automation. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a holistic view of the implementation. It acknowledges the stakeholders' concern about cost, but frames it within the context of the overall project objectives and the capabilities of TPv7. 5. By advocating for a phased approach that leverages existing TP functionalities and considers future scalability. It demonstrates an understanding of the platform's architecture and the importance of a well-defined implementation roadmap. This aligns with the principles of responsible IT project management, ensuring that the chosen solution is robust, maintainable, and capable of delivering the intended business value without compromising compliance or introducing undue risk. It also reflects a commitment to understanding and addressing the underlying business need that prompted the automation in the first place, rather than just the superficial cost saving. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on disabling a specific feature to reduce immediate licensing costs without a thorough understanding of its functional dependencies within TPv7. 5. Is professionally unacceptable. This could lead to unintended consequences, such as breaking critical workflows, compromising data integrity, or creating security vulnerabilities. From a regulatory perspective, depending on the industry and jurisdiction, such actions could violate data protection laws or industry-specific compliance mandates if the disabled feature was responsible for audit trails, access controls, or data validation. Another incorrect approach that involves a quick fix by bypassing standard TP configuration procedures to achieve a superficial cost saving without proper testing or documentation is also professionally unsound. This introduces technical debt, increases the risk of future failures, and makes the system difficult to support and upgrade. It undermines the integrity of the implementation and could lead to non-compliance with internal IT governance policies and external regulations if it impacts the reliability and security of automated processes. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, thoroughly understand the stakeholder's objective and the business problem they are trying to solve. Second, assess the proposed solution against the capabilities and best practices of the TPv7/5 platform, considering both immediate and long-term impacts. Third, identify potential risks, including technical, operational, and regulatory compliance risks. Fourth, explore alternative solutions that address the stakeholders' concerns while adhering to best practices and compliance requirements. Finally, present a clear, evidence-based recommendation to the stakeholder, outlining the pros and cons of each viable option, and emphasizing the importance of a sustainable and compliant implementation. Question 16. The risk matrix shows a moderate risk associated with unauthorized access to sensitive data within the IBM Tivoli Process Automation Engine v7/5 environment due to a proposed shortcut in the user provisioning workflow. A senior business stakeholder has requested the immediate implementation of this shortcut to expedite onboarding of new critical personnel, citing urgent business needs. Which of the following actions best represents a professional and compliant approach to managing this situation? Option A. Immediately implement the requested shortcut to satisfy the senior stakeholder's urgent request, assuming their authority overrides standard security protocols for critical business needs. Option B. Inform the stakeholder that their request cannot be fulfilled due to the identified risk, without further investigation or discussion of potential mitigations. Option C. Initiate a formal change request process to thoroughly assess the security implications, potential impact on audit trails, and alternative solutions for expediting user provisioning, while communicating the process and timeline to the stakeholder. Option D. Proceed with implementing the shortcut, but document the risk and the stakeholder's request in the project log, without initiating a formal change control process. The correct answer is C. Initiate a formal change request process to thoroughly assess the security implications, potential impact on audit trails, and alternative solutions for expediting user provisioning, while communicating the process and timeline to the stakeholder. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in IT implementation projects, balancing the immediate needs of a key stakeholder with the long-term stability and security of the implemented system, particularly within the context of IBM Tivoli Process Automation Engine, TP-v7/5. The challenge lies in the potential for a powerful stakeholder to exert influence that could compromise established best practices or regulatory compliance, even if their intentions are to expedite a perceived business benefit. The risk matrix, by its nature, highlights potential issues, and the interpretation and subsequent action are critical. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a structured, evidence-based decision-making process that aligns with project governance and risk management principles. It involves a thorough assessment of the stakeholders' request against the established project scope, technical feasibility, security implications, and potential impact on other project deliverables or operational stability. This approach ensures that any deviation from the plan is carefully considered, documented, and approved through appropriate channels, thereby maintaining accountability and mitigating unforeseen risks. Adherence to the IBM Tivoli Process Automation Engine V7. 5 implementation guidelines, which would implicitly cover security and operational best practices, is paramount. An incorrect approach that bypasses formal change control and risk assessment processes, even at the behest of a senior stakeholder, represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It undermines the integrity of the project management framework, potentially introducing vulnerabilities or instability into the TPV7. 5 environment that could have downstream consequences. Such an action could violate internal IT policies, security standards, and potentially even industry-specific regulations if the TP system is used in a regulated environment. It demonstrates a lack of professional judgment by prioritizing expediency over due diligence and established governance. Another incorrect approach might involve outright refusal without proper consultation or explanation. While maintaining adherence to standards is important, a complete dismissal of a stakeholder's concerns or requests, especially from a senior figure, can lead to project friction and a breakdown in communication. This is professionally suboptimal, as it fails to explore potential compromises or alternative solutions that might satisfy the stakeholder's underlying need without compromising the project's integrity. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Understanding the stakeholder's request and the underlying business need. 2. Consulting the project documentation, including the scope, risk register, and change management procedures. 3. Assessing the technical, security, and operational impact of the request. 4. Communicating the findings and potential implications clearly and objectively to the stakeholder and relevant project governance bodies. 5. Proposing a course of action that balances stakeholder needs with project objectives and risk mitigation, following the established change control process. Question 17. Consider a scenario where a critical bug fix for IBM Tivoli Process Automation Engine, TP, V7, 5 is identified as needing an immediate deployment to resolve a customer-impacting issue. The standard change management process requires a detailed impact analysis, testing in a staging environment, and a formal change request approval, which would take at least 2 business days to complete. The development team believes they can implement the fix directly in production with a high degree of confidence, bypassing the full change management cycle to expedite resolution. What is the most professionally responsible course of action? Option A. Implement the fix in the production environment without formal approval, but create a detailed documentation of the change and its justification after the fact. Option B. Initiate a documented emergency change process, clearly outlining the risks, the rationale for bypassing certain standard procedures, and obtaining interim approval from a designated authority, while committing to a full post-implementation review and documentation. Option C. Proceed with the fix directly in the production environment without any formal notification or documentation, relying on the team's expertise to minimize disruption. Option D. Inform the customer that the issue cannot be resolved immediately due to internal process constraints, and schedule the fix for the next planned maintenance window. The correct answer is B. Initiate a documented emergency change process, clearly outlining the risks, the rationale for bypassing certain standard procedures, and obtaining interim approval from a designated authority, while committing to a full post-implementation review and documentation. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the immediate need for a functional system with the long-term implications of technical debt and potential security vulnerabilities. The pressure to deliver quickly can lead to shortcuts that, while seemingly efficient in the short term, can have significant negative consequences later. Careful judgment is required to assess the true cost of these shortcuts against the benefits of rapid deployment. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a structured and documented decision-making process aligned with established IT governance principles. By involving key stakeholders, conducting a thorough risk assessment, and documenting the rationale for deviations, the team demonstrates accountability and foresight. This aligns with the implicit regulatory expectation of responsible IT management, ensuring that decisions are not arbitrary, but are based on a considered evaluation of impact and risk. Adherence to change management processes, even for seemingly minor adjustments, is crucial for maintaining system integrity and auditability. An incorrect approach that bypasses formal change control and documentation processes fails to establish a clear audit trail. This creates a significant regulatory and ethical failure, as it becomes impossible to trace the decision-making process, understand the justification for the deviation, or assess the potential impact of the change. This lack of transparency can lead to compliance issues if an audit reveals unauthorized or undocumented modifications. Furthermore, it fosters a culture where established procedures are disregarded, increasing the likelihood of future errors and security breaches. Another incorrect approach that proceeds with the change without a proper risk assessment is ethically unsound and professionally negligent. It demonstrates a disregard for potential negative consequences, such as system instability, performance degradation, or security vulnerabilities. This failure to proactively identify and mitigate risks can lead to significant financial and reputational damage, and potentially violate the duty of care expected of IT professionals. The professional reasoning framework for such situations involves a multi-step decision-making process. First, clearly define the problem and the proposed solution. Second, identify all relevant stakeholders and their concerns. Third, conduct a comprehensive risk assessment, considering technical, security, operational, and business impacts. Fourth, evaluate alternative solutions, including the do-nothing option. Fifth, document the chosen approach, its justification, and any associated risks and mitigation strategies. Sixth, obtain necessary approvals through established change management procedures. Finally, monitor the implementation and its outcomes. This structured approach ensures that decisions are informed, defensible, and aligned with organizational objectives and regulatory expectations. Question 18. The investigation demonstrates that a critical business process managed by IBM Tivoli Process Automation Engine V7.5 is experiencing intermittent failures, impacting service delivery. The immediate pressure is to restore functionality. Which of the following actions best represents a professional and compliant approach to resolving this issue? Option A. Implement a significant configuration change to TPv7.5 based on anecdotal evidence from other users experiencing similar, but not identical, issues. Option B. Immediately apply a quick fix or workaround based on initial assumptions to restore service, deferring a detailed investigation until after the immediate crisis has passed. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive root cause analysis by meticulously reviewing TPv7.5 logs, system configurations, and relevant infrastructure components, followed by a structured change management process for any proposed solution. Option D. Focus solely on external system dependencies, assuming they are the primary cause of the TPv7.5 failures without conducting thorough internal diagnostics. The correct answer is C. Conduct a comprehensive root cause analysis by meticulously reviewing TPv7.5 logs, system configurations, and relevant infrastructure components, followed by a structured change management process for any proposed solution. Explanation. The investigation demonstrates a scenario where a critical business process, managed by IBM Tivoli Process Automation Engine, TPv7.5, is experiencing intermittent failures. The challenge lies in determining the root cause of these failures and implementing a sustainable solution without disrupting ongoing operations or violating established IT governance and change management policies. The pressure to restore full functionality quickly can lead to hasty decisions, potentially overlooking crucial diagnostic steps or bypassing necessary approval workflows. The correct approach involves a systematic, evidence-based investigation that adheres strictly to the TPv7.5 implementation guidelines and the organization's IT service management (ITSM) framework. This includes thorough log analysis, impact assessment, and a structured change management process for any proposed fixes. This methodical approach ensures that the root cause is accurately identified, the solution is robust and tested, and all changes are documented and approved, thereby maintaining system integrity and compliance with operational procedures. This aligns with best practices for IT operations and incident management, emphasizing stability and control. An incorrect approach would be to immediately implement a workaround without fully understanding the underlying issue. This could mask the problem, leading to recurring incidents or introducing new, unforeseen issues. Such an action bypasses the change management process, which is a critical control mechanism designed to prevent unintended consequences and ensure that changes are properly evaluated, tested, and approved. This failure to follow established procedures constitutes a significant regulatory and ethical lapse, as it undermines the organization's commitment to operational stability and risk management. Another incorrect approach would be to focus solely on the symptoms without investigating the TPV7.5 configuration or underlying infrastructure. Superficial analysis might lead to a temporary fix that does not address the root cause, resulting in repeated failures and increased downtime. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and professional responsibility in problem solving, failing to apply the comprehensive diagnostic capabilities expected when managing complex systems like TP. A third incorrect approach would be to blame external factors without conducting a thorough internal investigation. While external dependencies can contribute to issues, a responsible IT professional must first exhaust all internal diagnostic possibilities. Attributing the problem solely to external causes without evidence is unprofessional and hinders effective problem resolution. It also represents a failure to uphold the duty of care to the organization's IT systems. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should follow a structured incident management and problem management framework. This involves 1. Incident identification and logging, 2. Initial diagnosis and triage, 3. Escalation and investigation, including log analysis, configuration review, and impact assessment, 4. Root cause analysis, 5. Solution design and testing, 6. Change management and implementation, 7. Verification and closure, and 8. Post-incident review. Adherence to this framework ensures a systematic, controlled, and effective resolution of IT issues. Question 19. Upon reviewing the proposed implementation plan for IBM Tivoli Process Automation Engine v7.5, which of the following approaches to conducting an impact assessment would best ensure a comprehensive understanding of potential changes across the organization and adherence to operational guidelines? Option A. An assessment focused solely on the cost savings projected from automating existing manual tasks, with minimal consideration for other operational disruptions. Option B. A detailed technical assessment of the TPV7.5 installation, focusing on server requirements, database configurations, and network connectivity. Option C. A broad survey of end users to gauge their general sentiment towards adopting new software without specific analysis of workflow changes. Option D. A collaborative assessment involving IT, business operations, security, and compliance teams to identify and analyze changes to processes, data, systems, and user roles, considering potential risks and benefits. The correct answer is B. A detailed technical assessment of the TPV7.5 installation, focusing on server requirements, database configurations, and network connectivity. Explanation: scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent complexity of implementing a new IT system like IBM Tivoli Process Automation Engine, TPV7.5, within an existing organizational structure. The challenge lies in accurately assessing the potential impact of this implementation on various business processes, IT infrastructure, and user workflows. A superficial or incomplete impact assessment can lead to unforeseen disruptions, increased costs, user dissatisfaction, and failure to achieve the intended benefits of the TP system. The need for a thorough and systematic approach is paramount to mitigate these risks. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a comprehensive impact assessment that systematically identifies all affected components, analyzes the nature and magnitude of the changes, and quantifies potential risks and benefits. This includes engaging stakeholders from all relevant departments, IT, business operations, security, compliance, etc., to gather diverse perspectives. The assessment should detail how TPV7.5 will alter existing workflows, data flows, system integrations, security protocols, and user responsibilities. It should also consider the impact on compliance requirements relevant to the organization's industry and jurisdiction. This detailed understanding forms the basis for effective planning, resource allocation, risk mitigation strategies, and a successful implementation that aligns with business objectives and regulatory adherence. Incorrect approach is analysis, focusing solely on the technical aspects of the TPV7.5 installation and configuration, without considering the broader business process implications, represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This narrow focus ignores the potential for disruption to critical business operations and user productivity, which could indirectly lead to noncompliance with service-level agreements or other operational mandates. Prioritizing only the perceived benefits of the new system, while downplaying or ignoring potential negative impacts on existing workflows and user adoption, is also professionally unacceptable. This biased assessment can lead to unrealistic expectations, inadequate training, and resistance from end users, ultimately hindering the successful integration of TPv7. 5. And potentially causing operational inefficiencies that could have regulatory implications. Limiting the impact assessment to a single department or a small group of IT personnel without involving broader business stakeholders is a critical oversight. This lack of comprehensive input can result in missed dependencies, overlooked risks, and a failure to understand the full scope of changes required across the organization. Such an approach can lead to unforeseen conflicts and integration issues, potentially impacting compliance with data handling or operational standards. Professional reasoning. Professionals undertaking an impact assessment for a system like IBM TPv7. 5 should adopt a structured, multidisciplinary approach. This involves 1. Defining the scope. Clearly delineate what aspects of the organization and its operations will be assessed. 2. Stakeholder identification and engagement. Identify all individuals and groups who will be affected by the implementation and actively involve them in the assessment process. 3. Data gathering. Collect information on current processes, systems, infrastructure, and user roles. 4. Impact analysis. Systematically analyze how the TPv7.5 implementation will change these elements, considering technical, operational, and business impacts. 5. Risk and benefit identification. Document potential risks and anticipated benefits, quantifying them where possible. 6. Mitigation and contingency planning. Develop strategies to address identified risks and ensure business continuity. 7. Documentation and reporting. Clearly document the findings of the impact assessment and communicate them to relevant stakeholders. This systematic process ensures that all potential consequences are considered, leading to a more informed and successful implementation. Question 20. The control framework reveals that the planned implementation of IBM Tivoli Process Automation Engine v7.5 is expected to streamline several key IT service management processes. However, a preliminary review suggests that the extent of process reengineering and its potential downstream effects on data integrity and audit trails are not fully understood. Which of the following approaches best ensures that the impact of this TPv7.5 implementation is adequately assessed from a compliance and operational perspective? Option A. Proceed with the TPv7.5 implementation based on the assumption that the new system's inherent capabilities will automatically enhance compliance and operational efficiency without requiring detailed process mapping or stakeholder consultation. Option B. Rely on vendor documentation and generic best practices for TPv7.5 implementations to define the impact, without conducting a specific assessment tailored to the organization's unique operational environment and regulatory obligations. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment that maps current processes to the proposed TPv7.5 workflows, identifies data flow changes, and evaluates potential effects on existing security and audit controls, involving key business and compliance stakeholders throughout the process. Option D. Focus the impact assessment solely on the technical configuration and performance metrics of the TPv7.5 system, deferring any evaluation of process changes or compliance implications until after the system has been deployed. The correct answer is C. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment that maps current processes to the proposed TPv7.5 workflows, identifies data flow changes, and evaluates potential effects on existing security and audit controls, involving key business and compliance stakeholders throughout the process. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because the implementation of a new IBM Tivoli Process Automation Engine (TPv7.5) solution, while intended to improve efficiency, has the potential to significantly alter existing business processes. The core of the challenge lies in accurately assessing the impact of these changes on various operational and compliance aspects without over- or underestimating the risks. A thorough impact assessment is crucial for ensuring that the TP implementation aligns with regulatory requirements and business objectives, and that potential disruptions are identified and mitigated proactively. The correct approach involves a systematic and comprehensive review of how the TPV7.5 implementation will affect existing workflows, data handling, security controls, and reporting mechanisms. This includes engaging with all relevant stakeholders, documenting the current state, mapping the future state with the new system, and identifying any gaps or deviations that could lead to non-compliance or operational inefficiencies. This detailed analysis ensures that the implementation is not only technically sound, but also operationally and regulatorily compliant, representing best professional practice by adhering to principles of due diligence and risk management inherent in IT system deployments. An incorrect approach would be to assume that the TPV7.5 implementation will inherently improve all processes without detailed validation. This assumption bypasses the critical step of identifying specific impacts and potential risks. Another incorrect approach is to focus solely on the technical aspects of the implementation, neglecting the operational and compliance implications. This oversight can lead to unforeseen issues, such as data privacy breaches or failure to meet audit requirements, which are significant regulatory and ethical failures. Furthermore, a reactive approach, where impacts are only addressed after the system is live, is also professionally unacceptable, as it demonstrates a lack of foresight and proactive risk management, potentially leading to costly remediation and reputational damage. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making process that begins with clearly defining the scope of the impact assessment. This involves identifying all systems, processes, and stakeholders that will be affected by the TPV7.5 implementation. Next, a detailed analysis of the current state and the proposed future state should be conducted, focusing on identifying specific changes and their potential consequences. This should be followed by a risk assessment to prioritize potential issues and develop mitigation strategies. Finally, continuous monitoring and validation throughout the implementation lifecycle are essential to ensure that the assessment remains relevant and that any emergent issues are addressed promptly.